Part 1. A quiet night turns strange. It was a quiet night, the kind you look forward to after a long day. Nothing too out of the ordinary. I had just moved into my new place a few weeks ago. The kind of home that, from the outside, looked unremarkable, almost too quiet. The neighborhood was peaceful. I spent my evenings the same way, dinner, a little TV, a few chapters of a book. Simple, relaxing. But on that night, I started feeling it. A strange, creeping sensation that I couldn't quite shake. I'd been on the couch for hours, flipping through channels when I first noticed it. The air felt thick, heavy. It wasn't that the house was cold, but there was a subtle chill that seemed to seep into my bones. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was just tired. Maybe it was just the house settling. I got up, stretched, and made my way to the kitchen. The floor creaked beneath my feet, but that's normal for a house this old. The noise was almost comforting, a reminder that I wasn't alone in the space. Still, something felt wrong, like someone was watching me. I tried to shake the thought, told myself I was being ridiculous. But as I stood there, waiting for my tea to heat up in the microwave, I saw it, a shadow in the corner of my eye. It flickered, disappearing almost as soon as I registered it. I blinked. Was I imagining it? The room was empty. The kitchen light hummed above, casting the usual shadows, but this one was different. It had moved. I tried to laugh it off, but my heartbeat started to quicken. I wasn't sure what I was afraid of, but the unease stayed with me, gnawing at my thoughts. Maybe I was just tired, but I couldn't ignore the feeling. Something or someone was in the room with me. Part 2. The first signs. The following days felt like déjà vu. That same feeling of being watched lingered in every corner of the house. It was subtle at first. Things out of place, noises that couldn't be explained. I'd walk into a room and find the chair slightly turned away from the table, or the rug shifted, like someone had walked across it when I wasn't looking. At night, it grew worse. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft creak of the floorboards, the sound of something moving in the house. I'd get up, check the windows and doors, but everything was locked, everything was still. Yet the air always felt thick, like it was holding its breath. One night I woke up to an unsettling noise, a tapping. It was soft, almost rhythmic. At first I thought it was the wind, the house settling, but when I got out of bed to investigate, it stopped. The house was eerily silent. I looked around, heart pounding, but I couldn't see anything. The tapping had stopped, but the unease didn't. I returned to bed, telling myself I was just imagining things. But it wasn't just the noise that bothered me. It was the feeling, the distinct sensation of eyes on me. I would be in the living room, the TV off, just sitting there in the quiet, and it would happen again. The feeling would wash over me like a cold breeze. Someone or something was watching me. Part 3. The final encounter. I couldn't take it anymore. The fear had become a constant companion, always lurking at the edge of my awareness. It was time to confront whatever was in my house. That night, I decided to stay awake. I turned off the lights, sat in the dark and waited. Every small sound sent my heart racing, but I refused to look away. The shadows moved in the corner of my vision, just out of reach. I felt my breath catch in my throat as I watched the air grow thicker, more oppressive, and then it happened. I saw it, clear as day. A figure standing at the foot of my bed. Its silhouette was faint, barely there, but I could see it. I could feel it. It was watching me. I was paralyzed, unable to move, unable to speak. It didn't come closer, but it didn't leave either. I don't know how long I sat there, locked in place, but when I finally gathered the courage to move, the figure was gone. The air seemed to clear, the weight lifted, and the room felt different. The feeling of being watched faded, but the fear didn't leave. I didn't stay in that house much longer after that night. I moved out as soon as I could, but I never forgot the feeling, the shadow that watched me in the dark. And even now, when I close my eyes, I can still feel its presence, just beyond the edge of my vision. Part 1. A fresh start. It was supposed to be a fresh start. I had just moved into a new apartment, escaping the chaos of my old life and looking forward to the quiet that came with my new space. The apartment wasn't much, small, tucked away in the corner of a sleepy neighborhood, but it was mine. A place to breathe, to think, to finally live without the constant hum of city noise and the unsettling memories of my past. I spent the first few days unpacking, setting everything just right, and enjoying the solitude. The walls were thin, but it didn't bother me. The soft creaks and groans of the building felt familiar, almost comforting. I had grown used to these sounds. After the first week, I found myself falling into a rhythm: work, dinner, a good book or a TV show, then sleep. Nothing extraordinary, nothing to fear. But after about 2 weeks, things started to change. It started small, insignificant, even, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. A noise here and there, a door left slightly ajar when I was certain I had closed it. The first time it happened, I chalked it up to forgetfulness. The second time, I brushed it off as a draft. But by the third time, I started to wonder, was I losing my mind? It wasn't just the small things. It was the way the apartment felt, the way the air seemed to thicken when I was alone. The quiet, once comforting, began to feel oppressive, like the silence was too loud, too still, and I was just waiting for something to happen. Part 2, the watching presence. I was starting to get paranoid. The quiet moments that used to bring me peace now felt suffocating. The apartment was far from perfect, but it was supposed to be my sanctuary. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, even when I knew I was. It started with sounds, soft, almost imperceptible at first. Footsteps outside my door when I was sure I was the only one in the building. A faint knock at the door, a light rattle of the doorknob, but when I opened it, no one was there. I tried to dismiss it as my imagination running wild. After all, who would want to watch me? But the feeling of being watched only grew stronger. Every time I walked past my bedroom door, I felt a presence just behind me. The sound of my own breath grew louder in my ears. My movements felt slower, as though something was keeping time with me. Then came the figure. It was late one night when I first saw it. I was in the kitchen making a cup of tea when I caught a glimpse of something in the hallway. A shadow, not quite human, but undeniably there. I froze, staring at the spot where it had appeared, my heart pounding in my chest. But when I turned the corner to check, there was nothing. I thought maybe it was just exhaustion. The stress of the move, the long days. But the next night, the figure appeared again, standing in the same spot, just outside my bedroom door. This time it wasn't fleeting. It stood still, like it was waiting for me to notice. I didn't move, couldn't move. My body refused to cooperate as I stood frozen in place, my breath shallow. And then, just as I thought I could no longer bear the tension, the figure vanished, just like that, as if it had never been there. That's when I knew I wasn't imagining it. Something was in my apartment, something that didn't belong. Part 3, confronting the stalker. At this point, I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. The shadows, the noises, the presence that lingered. I had to find out what was going on, whether I liked it or not. I couldn't keep living in fear, unsure of what was happening around me. I decided to confront it. The next time I saw the figure, I would demand to know what it wanted. I didn't know what to expect, but I had to know. So, one night I waited. The clock ticked away as I sat in my living room pretending to watch TV, but my eyes were trained on the hallway. I held my breath as I waited for that familiar shift in the air, the feeling that someone or something was near. It didn't take long. As the clock struck midnight, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. I saw it then, the figure, standing in the doorway to my bedroom. It was tall, shadowy, its outline blurred and indistinct. The air was thick, suffocating, like the room itself was holding its breath. I stood up, my legs trembling beneath me, and slowly walked toward it. My hands were clammy, my heart racing, but I refused to let fear control me. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. The figure didn't move. It didn't blink. It just stood there, watching me with those unblinking eyes, its presence heavy in the room. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I whispered, "What do you want?" For a moment, there was only silence. Then, as if on cue, the figure slowly faded away, leaving me standing alone in the dark, the air suddenly warm again. I stood there, shaken, trying to process what had just happened. But I knew one thing for certain: whatever had been in that apartment was no longer a figment of my imagination. It was real, and it was watching me. I couldn't stay there after that. The apartment became a place I couldn't bear to return to. I moved out a week later, but I still wonder if it's waiting for the next person, the next tenant, who will find themselves standing in the same place, facing the same fear. Part 1. A perfect house with an unsettling feeling. When I first found the house, I couldn't believe my luck. It was everything I'd ever wanted. Charming, old, with that rustic feel that seemed to breathe history into every room. It sat on a quiet street in a neighborhood where time felt like it had slowed down. The wood floors creaked just enough to remind me that I wasn't in a brand new building, and the walls seemed to whisper with the secrets they'd held for decades. The price was right too, which made it feel even more like a dream. I moved in without a second thought, eager to escape the drudgery of apartment life. I spent the first few days unpacking, enjoying the feeling of finally having my own space. I marveled at the details of the house: high ceilings, old woodwork, and the big windows that flooded the rooms with natural light. There were mirrors everywhere, framing the hallways and reflecting the beauty of the place. But from the moment I stepped inside, there was something I couldn't shake. Something in the air, in the house itself, felt off. I couldn't pinpoint it. The house didn't look haunted, but the shadows in the corners seemed a little too dark, and the silence felt too thick. Still, I told myself it was just the adjustment to a new place. Nothing more. It was my mind playing tricks, right? But then things started happening, things I couldn't ignore. Part 2. The mirrors and the eyes. It was after I had settled in that I began noticing the oddities. It was subtle at first, shadows flickering in the reflection when I passed by a mirror, like something was moving in the corner of my eye. I thought it was just a trick of the light, or perhaps my tired mind playing games with me. But then the reflection started to feel more deliberate. One evening, after a long day at work, I walked into the hallway and glanced into the mirror. For a split second, I saw a figure, someone standing right behind me, a figure I had not seen when I turned around. My heart skipped a beat. I whipped around, but the hallway was empty. I stared into the mirror again, but the reflection was just me, no one else. I chalked it up to fatigue. Maybe it was just the weird angle or my imagination running wild, but the next few days, the same thing happened. I'd walk past the large mirror in the living room, and someone would appear behind me in the reflection, always just out of view, just enough to make my heart race. The figure wasn't always the same. Sometimes it was just a shadow, dark and indistinct. Other times it seemed like a person, tall, thin, with a faint outline, their face blurred, but their eyes, those eyes, they were always the same. I couldn't see much, but there was a piercing intensity in them, like they were staring straight into me, seeing into places I wasn't ready to let anyone see. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Someone was in the house with me, and it wasn't just in the mirrors. Part 3. The encounter and the revelation. It wasn't until a week later that the situation escalated. That night, I decided to stay up late reading a book in the living room, the soft glow of the lamp casting long shadows across the room. The house was eerily silent, the only sound the occasional creak of the floorboards. But even the stillness felt wrong, like the house was holding its breath, waiting. I glanced up from my book. The mirror across the room caught my eye, and as it had happened before, I saw the figure, there, standing just behind me. This time, though, it was different. The reflection was clearer, and I could see that the figure was standing closer. I could make out the outline of a face, pale, gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed too real. I froze. My heart was in my throat. I didn't dare move, not even to breathe. The figure didn't move either, but the eyes, they didn't just look at me. They watched me. For what felt like an eternity, I stared at the reflection. Then something happened. Slowly, the figure raised a hand. Its fingers were long, unnaturally thin, and they reached toward the mirror, toward me. It moved with a deliberate slowness, as if savoring every moment. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I wanted to run, but my legs were frozen in place. The hand stopped, just an inch from the mirror's surface, and then in an instant, the figure moved. It didn't simply step forward, it lunged at me. The mirror cracked with the force of it, the sound like glass shattering in my ears. I stumbled back, heart pounding, eyes wide, unable to tear my gaze away. But when I looked again, the reflection was gone. The glass was intact, the room just as it had been. I turned quickly, expecting to see something behind me, but the hallway was empty. No figure, no shadow, only the oppressive silence. I wasn't sure if I had just imagined it, but the fear in my chest told me otherwise. I knew I had to leave. I couldn't stay in a house that wasn't mine anymore, one that belonged to something else, something that had been waiting for me to notice. The mirrors were no longer just glass. They were gateways, and whatever had been behind them was watching me, waiting for the right moment to cross over. I packed up my things and left that night, but as I closed the door behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't really leaving. It had followed me. It was still there, watching me from the other side of the mirror. I never went back to that house. I don't know if anyone else has moved in, but sometimes I wonder if they'll be the next to see those eyes. Because once you've seen them, they never truly leave. As the final stories of the night fade away, the world around you might seem just a little quieter, a little darker. You might feel your eyes darting toward the corner of the room, wondering, is something watching me too? These stories, chilling as they are, aren't just tales to pass the time. They're reminders of the things that linger just outside our view, the things that wait in the shadows. Maybe it's the mirrors that reflect more than we want to see. Maybe it's the silence that speaks louder than words. Whatever it is, there's always something behind the curtain, something watching, waiting for the right moment. But remember, you're not alone. The darkness may try to creep in, but there's always light, even in the deepest of shadows. As you step out of this world of fear, take a deep breath. The watchers may still be out there, but for tonight, you're safe. At least until tomorrow.